Welcome to the Bayou Progressive. I'm Quentin Anthony Anderson, and today we continue our 2026 midterm series with Matt Gromlich, a Democratic candidate for Congress in Louisiana's 4th Congressional District. Gromlich is an educator from Shreveport who says he's running to fight for working families, lower costs, invest in education, and offer voters in Northwest Louisiana a very different kind of representation from what they've had in Washington. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I will start with the softest of softball
hmm
questions, which is, before we get into the issues, tell folks who are just now learning about you and your candidacy, who is Matt Gromlich and why in the world did you decide to run for Congress?
Yeah, so it seems like a softball question. There's a little bit of history behind that. So I'm an educator, as you mentioned, lifelong educator. This is my 14th year teaching. I've taught 6th through 12th grade, adult ed, and now I teach future teachers here at LSU in Shreveport. And why am I running? I'm running because I care about my students, I care about their families, and I care about my community. And I've seen how in Trump 1.0 that students, teachers, communities, and families have been torn apart, that there are different policies that are put into place, or even just like executive actions that have been put into place that have really damaged our students, their learning, our society, and the ability to build a stronger community. So that happened in Trump 1.0. I had students, I was teaching in Las Vegas at the time, where I had students who came into class the day after the election crying because they didn't know if their parents would be home when they got home.
Hmm.
And then that was every day that was on their mind, the entirety of the first Trump term.
Yeah.
Thought that we got past that, and now we have an even, crazier administration, even more authoritarian administration. And at this point, I saw how that impacted people around me before, and I knew that I had to step up and do something now.
So why Congress?
Why Congress? Because Mike Johnson is my representative. I'm in District 4, and the longer that I'm here, the more students that I teach, the more I believe that he is not a good representative for our district, that there are so many better people that can be in that place. I'm one of them. And that we can really bring this district together and put people in the rooms to have conversations to build up Louisiana District 4 instead of keeping it the same or letting it deteriorate as it has done.
But you are running against a very powerful Republican.
hmm
In fact, the way that
Yes.
it typically the way it typically works in Congress is they don't put you in leadership unless you are in the safest of safe seats.
Yep.
And so, why pick such a big task? Because you're not just knocking off some
Right.
some nobody Republican
hmm
like Clay Higgins. All right, like
Yeah.
you're going after the Speaker of the House. Why choose this race?
So Mike Johnson has not had a Democratic challenger since 2020. He's kind of been allowed to skate by. And I think that when in education we talk about win conditions, and one win condition for this race is to actually win, and I'm fighting to win. And I think there is a pathway to winning. Also, win conditions are to hold Mike Johnson accountable, to make him have to answer to his voters. He has not had to do that in a very long time. He doesn't hold town halls. He's not present in the community. And to show the voters and the constituents in this district that there is a different way to be represented. And so my way of representing is similar to how I am as a teacher, is getting people together, providing people with the information that they need to succeed, and listening and building up everybody.
Would you say that you're right? Because I like that you specified that you do think that this is winnable and you are running to win. Because I think that
hmm
sometimes that is. I was talking with Tanya Nyman, who's running in the fifth. I was talking with her last night, and we've known each other for years. And one of the disagreements sometimes that we have is that I'm not a big fan of people that run just to make a point or people that run to be a
hmm
protest vote. I respect the people
hmm
that do it because it's still hard work and you're putting yourself out there. But I do think that it becomes sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy when people
hmm
know that you're not running to win. You're also not, going 120% because you know that you're not running to win. And I think that it just sort of compounds. Voters aren't going to stand
Absolutely.
in the rain for somebody that they know.
Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of like doing
hmm
this because they want to make sure that Democrats have somebody to vote for. So
hmm
I guess I'm wondering, how much of this campaign, should you be the nominee, how much of this campaign is a referendum on Mike Johnson, and how much of it is that you are offering just an alternative, a different direction in terms of representation? How much of it is going to be, hey, like you should vote for me because Mike Johnson is bad, and how much of it is going to be, this is the Matt Gromlich vision for representing the fourth district for the next couple of years?
I think probably 30-70. So
Okay.
30% Mike Johnson's bad, and
Mm-hmm.
70% this is what I can do here. Here's all the opportunities that we have in the district, highlighting those, showing people what we have available, what we can do, who we could bring together. Um, and yeah, I mean, 30%, part of it does have to be that Mike Johnson's not doing his job and highlighting the ways that he's not. But any campaign cannot just be an
Mm-hmm.
opposition campaign. We've
Yeah.
seen that that doesn't work. People don't want to just vote against something. They want to have hope. They want to vote for something. They want something to believe in, and they want to see that your words and your actions align and match, and that you are the person that can actually make that happen.
So, okay, let's do a direct segue then into policy.
Yeah.
What are the
Mhm.
things that you can make happen? What are you running on? What, like, and
So,
let
mhm.
let's yeah, let's synthesize it. The way that I've constrained everybody else is,
Mhm.
I am sure that there are a million things that you care about.
Right.
If you're
Yes.
at somebody's door and they have their keys in their hand as you're about to show up with the door
Mhm.
hanger, they're like, all right, like just make it quick.
Mhm.
What is your message to voters in a quick, handshake interaction?
My message to voters is that I believe, I think most of us can agree that people want to feel safe, feel heard, feel secure, have opportunities for themselves and for their families and children. And so from there, my policies all build on providing opportunities for the community and having people feel safe and secure. So one of my biggest priorities is education. I'm an educator.
Okay.
So making sure that students are not going hungry when they're going to school. It's fairly doable to implement free or school lunches that are provided by the schools, by the system. We have seen
How
that it
how
worked.
how how would we do that at the federal level? Because you'd be running for Congress. What would you advocate for at the federal level?
So we've seen that have some states have been able to implement that
Mm-hmm.
on statewide or even a citywide. You could do similar things at the federal level. There is money. I mean, if we still have a Department of Education at that point,
It is
but
being dismantled as we speak, I believe.
yes, and we have a secretary who doesn't really believe the department should be there. So if we have a Department of Education, I mean, you as Congress, you can appropriate money,
Hmm.
and that could be appropriated to the department and then funneled down to the states. We do that for like special education type funds as well, and so like there
Hmm.
is a pathway to do that.
Okay. And I'll dive a little bit deeper because I had a
Sure.
conversation with somebody about the Race to the Top program of the early
Hmm.
Obama years, and that
Yeah.
is typically the mechanism, that the way that they did Race to the Top is typically the mechanism
Yeah.
for trying to implement federal programs in schools,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
most schools are regulated by state and
Yes.
local law, and so it can sometimes
Right.
be difficult, and it's often incentive based. Like,
Hmm.
you hold a pot of money and you say, hey, you want this pot of money, you
Hmm.
do these things. So you say,
Right.
and I always use round numbers, these are never real, but you say,
Yeah.
here's $1 million for your school system if you
Hmm.
will also implement free school
Yeah.
lunches, free
Hmm.
breakfast, that
Hmm.
sort of thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So is that yeah, let's stay on education just for a second.
Sure.
Education is sometimes a difficult one to make change
Hmm.
at the federal level. Have you thought
Yes.
about specific policies, like bills that you would, sponsored bills that you'd write that could have a direct impact, or would it be similar to what we've had in the past, which is incentive-based programs that states are going to have to opt into? And if it's that, what is your approach to, sort of, especially coming from the inside, coming from having been
Hmm.
an educator, what is your approach to creating programs that do look attractive to states and that they would want to opt into at the federal level?
Yeah, I think a lot of questions embedded in there, a lot of but one of the easiest things. I think would be to have that couched inside and similar to the Race to the Top. Um, but bills are necessary because any program like that or any funding structure, could be removed with the next Congress or by,
Hmm.
potential executive actions or, by other ways. And so we really do need to put legislation into place as a federal Congress to be able to support our teachers and our students. One thing that I am very passionate about is universal pre-K. And
Hmm.
we already have the opportunities for students who are kindergarten through 12th grade to have access to a education system. And we can talk about the pros and cons of our current education system and how it could be better. But right now, we don't have any access at a federal level for 3 and 4-year-old children. And a lot of other countries do. And if you look at studies that are have been done or are being done, I mean, there's great benefit for students to start school at a younger age. There's great benefit
Hmm.
for
Oh yeah.
parents who
Hmm.
send their kids to school at a younger age. Then you don't have to spend money on daycare. You have more time in the workforce if you want to. You can start
Hmm.
new businesses. And then specifically in Louisiana, what I'm seeing with friends around my age who want to start families, they're considering moving to other states that do have better,
Yeah.
pre-K or childcare systems that are in place. And so we're losing people in their, 20s and 30s to other places. We could retain more of our population if we have just a better support system for families.
I'm curious, do you this doesn't have I don't think it has anything to do with the office you're running for, but I'm just curious as an educator and as somebody who's passionate about education policy. Do you think that the school day, the way that we've configured the school day, could use reform?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, in theory, everything could use reform with education, even the idea of like grade levels, and you're just
Hmm.
moved along with people who are of similar age, even though if you look at like cognitive development and biological development, not every person
Hmm.
progresses at the same point. And so I mean, our current educational system is really a manufacturing type system where you go from this stage to this stage to this stage, and educational research shows that it could be better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so let's so because I took us down, and I may end up doing that from time to time. Okay, so education would be the first issue that
Mhm.
and that
Yes.
makes sense. I think it also translates well from your biography. Would be the next issue. I know you talk a lot about cost of living.
Cost
Uh,
of living and specifically healthcare.
okay, so why healthcare? And I know that all Democrats say that we care about healthcare, but why you tell me why you think that healthcare is so important and why, and even more broadly, why is it so crucial for Democratic candidates to get it right when it comes to healthcare? Not only talking about it, but getting the policy right.
Yeah. So I think why it's so crucial to get it right is because to some extent we got it wrong in the past.
Hmm.
We did this half measure, and the goal was never to stick with the Affordable Care Act as it is. It was to continue to progress it forward.
Hmm.
But we settled for something that was a half measure and it didn't keep progressing it. So I think it's really important. You see this on the Republican side a lot is they fight for the craziest, most
Hmm.
outlandish, and then they step back. And what we've seen from Democratic legislators, especially in the last 10, 15 years, is that we start in the middle and then have to cut back to 25%.
It's like we're negotiating for the other side.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And, like terrible negotiation tactics.
yeah.
So it's important for us to get it right. One, because we've gotten it wrong, we need to redeem ourselves. And then two, just to show people that we are actually like pushing for what's best and not conceding without even fighting.
So, what's your North Star on healthcare? Like when you get to Congress, what would be the determinant of I'm voting for it or I'm voting against it when it pertains to healthcare? Like what is the goal? What are you trying to get to? Because you said that the ACA is sort of a half measure, and I've said
Mhm.
this in previous interviews. I've walked people through the history of how we ended up with a very scaled down form of what had
Mhm.
initially been proposed,
Right.
and yeah, it was supposed to be built off of
Hmm.
continue to build out, but originally we were supposed to have a public option which
Yep.
would have had a really big impact on affordability.
Hmm.
Um, what is your North Star when you get to Congress? Because obviously you could introduce a single payer piece of legislation, but
Hmm.
I don't know that that passes right now. So how could how are you going to try to get us towards your North Star? So what is your North Star when it comes to healthcare? Like
Hmm.
what does it look like in a perfect world? And how do you get there relative to your votes in Congress?
Yeah, definitely. Ideally, it is a single payer system. I think what we attempted to do in the beginning was right. You at least have an option for everyone, and that healthcare is provided in that federal option and not tied to employment.
Mm-hmm.
What we're seeing, anecdotally and in data, people stay at jobs for healthcare. Uh, they may not be able to change jobs, so people are stuck. You don't have as much like growth in personal development, people moving up. It's just really it handcuffs a lot of people when it's tied to our jobs. So however we can do that, whatever legislation like takes it out of the private sector, like tying to jobs and provides a different option, to me, that's a huge win for society.
Do you think this um I think that this is related to what we're talking about, but it might not be depending on what your priorities are. Republicans often, by the time they get to about, the summer or the fall of an election year, they're all kind of on board with what their legislative priorities are. And if they take the House, if they take the Senate, they're going to do this. And they typically at least pursue the things that they
Mhm.
talked about. Uh, what would you say are the big ticket items that need to pass if Democrats were to take both houses of Congress in November? Because I've heard things like, and I don't think that you can do this while Trump is still in office. So maybe this is also like
Mhm.
all of Congress and the presidency, but things like
Right.
immediately making Puerto Rico and DC states.
Yes. 100%.
Um, I'm trying to think of other ones. I don't know if there's universal agreement on the minimum wage, which there should be. But what are
Hmm.
the like big ticket items? January 20th, or well, you guys will get inaugurated January 3rd. That first week that just needs to get passed. Like we need to take the momentum that we took from November. We need to get it done.
Yep. So let's say we have control of
Yep.
both houses, in theory, presidency, or can get the presidency behind us.
Yep.
I'm in agreement about minimum wage. It has been far too long since we've raised it. It makes sense to raise the minimum wage. I agree with DC becoming a state and Puerto Rico if the Puerto Ricans decide. I know that there's some
Mm-hmm.
disagreement amongst Puerto Ricans, and so I think there's not disagreement amongst people in DC. Uh,
Yeah.
but from Puerto Ricans, my aunt's Puerto Rican. I think that we can't force anybody to be a state, but we should have some type of vote referendum and let them choose if they want to as a territory to become a state. Um, and so then we get the appropriate representation in Congress. I mean, no taxation without representation is kind of why we're here, and we're not following it. I think that we need to look at the Supreme Court and see if the current structure is working. I would say that it's not. Should we expand the Supreme Court? Should we have term limits for the Supreme Court? What does that look like? Again, this is like magic wand
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
type things. Term limits for Congress as well. And we also need to, I would love to expand the House. We've
Mm.
capped the House at 435, but it's the number of people that each representative is representing has gone from about 200 and something thousand when that bill was introduced. Now it's about
Mm-hmm.
750,000. That is a lot of people to talk to. How do you say that you're truly representing your district when there's three-quarters of a million people? There's no way you could ever talk to everybody. Not that,
I think if most of them were honest, they'd say that they're not. And I think if you just look,
right.
I think that in many cases it has become that a lot of a lot of these politicians are choosing who they're representing, whether it's
Yes.
geographically, right? And so,
Hmm.
one of the arguments when Louisiana combined to put North Baton Rouge into the second congressional district was that clearly North Baton Rouge was not going to get proportionate representation because New Orleans was the seat of
Hmm.
that, and that's where the
Hmm.
congressman was from, and that's where the congressman would almost always be from, and that's always kind of been the concern sometimes when you have these districts that have a big city and then the rest of it is rural, that you're
Hmm.
not getting fair representation. And so I think part
Hmm.
of what you're saying could address that, which is that if it's smaller
Absolutely.
populations, you have
Hmm.
less of an excuse.
Yeah. Yeah. You have more people who are representing your state, and it's more just like geographically, it makes more sense because if you look at District 4, I mean, it's insane how geographically large this district is
It
to
is.
go from one part to another and down. And
Then you got a congressional
truly,
district going right in the
right
middle
in
of
the
it. It's
middle,
just,
yeah. So you represent part of the Shreveport area, but not all of it.
yep.
And then, basically the whole western side of the state, down
Now
to Lake
let's
Charles.
let's be fair about everybody know you can visually see what part of Shreveport you represent and what part you don't. That's the nasty part of
You can.
gerrymandering
Mhm.
because I
Yes.
ran in the sixth 2 years ago and yeah, I mean you can just kind of look around and you're like, this is
Mm.
probably in the sixth and this is probably in the fourth.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on gerrymandering?
Somehow we need to get rid of gerrymandering too. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that this is allowed. It's crazy that in democracy we let our politicians pick who elects them. Really, it should be like smaller districts and just, I'm a former math teacher. Now I teach future math teachers. I like taught geometry for a long time. The shape of the district should be geometrically pleasing.
Yeah,
Uh, that would make sense and like about the same shape for every district. That.
you're you're telling me that the awkward V shape of the fourth congressional district isn't intuitive? That's not
It
what a
is very
computer would
not,
draw.
no. Nope. And what shape is that? If I asked my class, I gave that as like, how would you describe this shape? There's not a word for it.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. I okay, so that's an easier one, right? Like I think most Democrats are against gerrymandering. I think on paper, almost every candidate says that they're against gerrymandering.
Hmm.
In the reality of the world that we live in, where you're starting to have this almost like arms race in the states,
Hmm.
where Texas changed their
Yep.
maps in response. California,
Hmm.
had their or
Yep.
constitutional ballot measure to be able to do the
Hmm.
same for theirs. Maryland is trying to do the same. Virginia's
Hmm.
trying to do the
Virginia.
same.
Hmm.
How do you balance what is clearly anti-democratic, right? Like the
Hmm.
entire effort
Hmm.
to do this all within
Right.
mind control of Congress, but at the
Hmm.
expense of actual representation. How do you balance knowing that and feeling that and sharing that sentiment with the reality that Republicans don't give a shit and that
Yeah, it's
they are
right.
going to manipulate
Mm.
the maps?
Yes. I think it has to be a federal mandate of no gerrymandering and a commission at the federal level because you're right. You can't, the Republicans don't care, and they're going, we saw with Texas, even a mid-cycle redistricting, which is crazy,
Insane.
uh, that like they're not playing by the same rules.
You know,
And so until we are all under the same rules, the game has changed. So we have to play by these new rules now, unfortunately, until we get into power and can change the rules for everybody to make it more fair.
are you concerned that because I guess it kind of goes to it's like every good comic book storyline, you accumulate the power that you need to be able to like defeat the villain, and then you're
And
kind
then
of
you become the villain.
yeah, because you're like, well, this power
Yeah.
feels pretty good, and very rarely in history do people kind of take steps backwards when it comes to the accumulation of power and how it's wielded.
Mhm.
Do you see an end to this? Like realistically, do you see an end to this sort of hyper partisanship that really has now crossed into treating the Constitution like a gentle recommendation
Right.
more than actual guidelines and rule of law?
I think the end, if there is an end, it will come when the people in this current administration and people in Congress who have allowed all of these atrocities and anti-constitutionality to occur are held accountable. Now, will people be held accountable? It has happened in other countries where people have been held accountable. It has never really happened in the United States. Not that it can't, but until until there's punishment for completely abandoning the Constitution and for abdicating your role as a congressional member and for, committing crimes, like people are going to keep doing it.
And that's interesting because strangely enough, well, I guess not strangely, because we are living in very clear parallels to past history.
Yes.
I've had conversations with other candidates about Lincoln's plan, Lincoln's Reconstruction plan, and I think
Hmm.
people sometimes don't remember or they don't teach it in school because once he died, history moves on. But
Right.
like his plan, had he lived, was much more conciliatory to the South because his he kind of took the same view that you know throughout American history we've taken, which is that reconciliation is the more realistic path, that the country can't really handle those sort of divisions. And so his approach was, and I'm really paraphrasing, but essentially let
Mm.
bygones be bygones. The war's over, bring the South in, and we'll just make good, we'll make nice, and we'll move forward together.
Hmm.
He gets killed, and the what they were called the radical Republicans at the time, they were absolutely not on board for Lincoln's plan, and for the next 10, 11 years, it was that was a period of Reconstruction
Hmm.
where Democrats were not allowed to vote. Anybody who served in the Confederacy was not
Hmm.
considered a citizen. I mean, it was pretty intense. And since then, history has often, I guess somewhat smiled upon Gerald Ford for making a very different decision after
Hmm.
Nixon, which was essentially what you said. The country can't handle that level of accountability, so I'm going to pardon him and we're just going to move on. What do you think those lessons have taught us for what the post MAGA movement is going to look like? Because I think that there's some truth to both of those, right? There's truth to, sometimes it's so bad that there needs to be accountability, be damned what the
Hmm.
social consequences are. But
Hmm.
also, you look at, and this is a little bit less related, but like you look at post World War I with Germany, you punish them even though they deserved it, and what you got back in World War II was much worse. What is that balance of accountability with the political realities that half the country went along with this?
Yeah. Well, also after World War II, people were held accountable in a
Yeah,
much different way.
yeah.
And you see where Germany is now.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to overcome that and build themselves back together. I think that I continue to kind of have this conversation in my head and with other people is there's two different groups of MAGA.
Hmm.
There's the MAGA voters, and then there's the MAGA administration.
Yeah.
And the consequences or the aftermath for each should be different. And as a teacher, like my philosophy every day is like if my student is acting up or my student is doing this or like there's a reason and that we as biological beings we make the best decision we think we can make at the time with the information that we have. And that's most humans. I mean, there are like a few people who are irrational or a few people who may just be,
Sociopaths.
sociopaths. But I think like the average human, you make the decision in the time with the information that you have, hoping for a good outcome,
Yeah.
or knowing that in the past you made this decision and it wasn't terrible. And so I really I understand people's thoughts around, well, the MAGA people, the Republicans, they voted for this. But did they? Like
Hmm.
truly did they? A few people did, but the rest of the population, they were fed misinformation, they were fed disinformation. Like they truly thought that they were making the right decision for themselves and then their families in the moment that they made it. And so those people, the outcome afterwards is better education, better access to
Yeah.
information, that a government that provides like true data and tries to explain the data in an unbiased way, and people in the media sphere who are not trying to spin. I mean, again, this is like magic wand, but
Hmm.
and those are the people, that group of people that I'm trying to reach in this campaign. Like, of course, the Democrats and the independent and no party voters, but also that group of people who, in the moment, felt like they were making the right decision And it's because of all the misinformation, disinformation, not because of sociopathy or hatred. Now, the people in power, they're making decisions and they need to be held accountable because they know the decisions they're making. They know how government works. They know how the media works. They know how all this information is peddled, and they're actually, involved in doing that and
Yeah.
spreading more misinformation to people. So those people who are anti-Constitution, who've committed crimes, like, or who've allowed this to happen, I mean, I think we do prosecute those top level people, not everybody below. We can't say, well, if you voted for Trump in 2024, like you
Yeah.
can't vote until 2032. Like that
Yeah.
that just causes further divide.
Yeah.
But make an example of the top level people who willingly, purposefully created the division in our government and our society. And then other people, we need to create systems that provide better information so that you can make better choices.
I think that's actually kind of a good segue because we're going to talk a little bit about like how to talk to voters in the fourth, in particular, Republican leaning
Mhm.
people who might have voted for Trump, the odd Trump Obama voter, which I'm
Yeah.
still reconciling with. But I am curious, what do you think the well-intentioned conservative that voted for Trump either three times or may have just voted for Trump in 24? What do you think they were voting for?
There are a lot of answers. There's not just one. Uh, I think that one of the biggest blunders of the end of the Biden administration and the Biden campaign that, transitioned to the Harris campaign was saying that the economy was good.
Mm-hmm.
And math person, I'm like in my mind creating a video of how I want to try to explain some things. It's complicated, but
Yeah.
we have been conflating economy with stock market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And most Americans don't even have enough money to be invested in the stock market.
No.
Or it's just in your 401k or 403b or this,
Like
mythical pension that you
20
don't
$20 in
see.
Robinhood in your
Right.
Robinhood app. Yeah.
Right. And so saying, well, the economy is great because the stock market is great, that is not people's reality. It doesn't matter if the stock market is, if the Dow hit 50,000 or if, it went
Mm-hmm.
up 3 percentage points today because people have $0 in it. 3% of zero is still zero.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people truly were looking at what the administration was saying, that the economy's fine, and then looking at their bank account, looking and seeing things around them, and there was inflation. And I mean, Biden did a really great job handling the post-COVID recovery, but didn't explain it. Like, yeah, our stock market is fine, and we still have inflation, and you're still feeling it, and here's the plan, and here's
Mm-hmm.
like the education piece of it. So I really do think people were voting for Trump to somehow fix the economy when they're like, well, the Democrats are lying to us unintentionally, but yeah.
What do you Because sometimes I get frustrated when I see the rhetoric on the right, not politicians, but right-leaning voters, conservatives, how they perceive
Hmm.
Democrats and Democratic policies, and even some of the rewriting of history of the Obama years.
Hmm.
Um, why do you think the Democratic brand is so toxic in those circles? Like, what do you think that it's because I mean, obviously, part of it is there's an intentional effort on the right,
Hmm.
and then people have been susceptible to that, but there's a receptiveness to it also
Hmm.
on the right and in the middle to some degree that has accepted some of this bad reputational damage that's happened to
Hmm.
the Democratic Party. Why do you think that is?
Again, I think there are a lot of reasons for it. I mean, part of it is just the realignment of the evangelical Christian group to be
Mm-hmm.
synonymous with Republican. I mean, I grew up very conservative Christian Southern Baptist military household.
Hmm.
And me growing up, like Democrats bad. Like
Hmm.
I remember I was, I don't know, maybe 10 or something. It was like, Mom, can a Christian be a Democrat? Like that's how
Hmm.
ingrained it is. So there is a culture of just like growing up that you're trained to think that that the Democratic Party is like not Christian or not good or not moral, even though we have so many examples of the contrary. But the Democratic Party doesn't help itself either.
Hmm.
And I think well, I kind of noticed in Harris's campaign against Trump, who I thought, I mean, I thought she was fantastic with the amount of time that she had,
Hmm.
and her debate was phenomenal.
Hmm.
One area that just as somebody who like is a professor and can read and write in academia, and also I have to transmit knowledge to people who are much younger, is that sometimes the Democratic Party speaks up here too much and isn't
Hmm.
able to translate that information down. And
Yep.
then it comes across as pretentious. It comes
Hmm.
across as we're like speaking down to you.
Hmm.
And it's like, but Trump speaks at a fifth or sixth grade level.
If that, if that.
If that, so most of his speeches are, I think, are like fourth grade. And the average American, their reading level and speaking level is about sixth grade.
No.
So I think that we and how we talk about information and content and policy, the ideas are fantastic, but translating that to the populace is it doesn't always work.
Republicans are good at the bumper sticker. They
Mhm.
are like, even if the bumper sticker is completely wrong, people
Right.
would prefer the three-word answer to the white paper that Democrats are
Yep.
offering, even
Hmm.
if the white paper is like on it, right? Because
Yep.
we tend to want to be right on policy. We really want to be
Hmm.
accurate, and we want to make sure that like people are buying in for the right reasons and all that. But it does mean that sometimes we talk over people and we don't talk to people where they are. I remember
Hmm.
growing up, and it always stuck with me. People, my teachers would teach that the reason Martin Luther King was such a good orator wasn't because he was using big words and that sort of thing, but it was because he spoke directly and clearly and at the level that people needed to hear so that what he was saying is what people heard. And he wasn't just like
Hmm.
saying words and then hoping
Right.
that they got interpreted properly. And I do wonder, um, what is your approach to talking to voters in the fourth that is different than the sort of generic, typical, or stereotypical Democrat? How do you plan to sort of incorporate those lessons learned in the way that you plan to go about engaging with voters?
Yeah, I'm a teacher. I've done it for 14 years. I've had the privilege of teaching thousands of students in different states and different countries. I've taught, sixth grade to 12th grade adults. I've taught GED. I've taught English. I've taught math. I've taught a theater class. I like you learn so much by interacting with so many different people. Also, with my dad being military, I moved around a lot. And
What branch was your dad?
Coast Guard.
Okay.
Mhm. So over 30 years in the Coast Guard. Uh,
Okay.
moved every 3 or 4 years, 9 different states. Uh, so
Well, if this works out and you end up running for president one day, that'll all come in handy because you can say that all of them are home
right,
states.
right, exactly. Yeah, what I've learned is what's similar. Because fundamentally, as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, like we're humans,
Hmm.
we're Americans, we're Louisianans. We want safety and security and prosperity, and people want to work. They just want to work at a dignified job. And the biggest thing is that people want to be heard.
Yeah.
And in the age of this, online crazy social media space where people are talking at each other, they're not talking to each other.
Hmm.
In my classrooms, even now, I listen way more than I talk, which sounds counterintuitive as a teacher, but you set up the spaces and the environments, and with your expertise, you create the opportunities for your class to engage, for people to come together and collaborate, to speak, to treat each other with respect in how they're speaking to each other. And at a young age, that's sentence stems. Like, oh, that's a great point. I agree with you because blank. And oh, thank you for agreeing with me. Here's where I disagree with you here, And so like you create and foster the environment and practice what you preach about listening and hearing people's concerns. And it doesn't mean you can fix everything because that's impossible. But in my time already campaigning, people just want to be heard. And I'm here to listen and I'm here to validate that your experience is your experience. Like your experience is real to you.
Yeah.
There is some disinformation and misinformation, and like is that real in the greater context? Maybe, maybe not, but like your experience is real to you, and that's important to validate. And here's how I see that, and here's how I could see us working together, and here's where I see us going.
And that's the pivot that Democrats versus Republicans make right now, is that Republicans will sometimes to a detriment validate, um like, because I think I sensed where you kind of added that caveat about like misinformation, because there are going to be some people that you knock on their door and they tell you it's the immigrants that did this to me, and you're like,
Hmm. Hmm.
all right, all right.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
what Republicans will do is, because it's low hanging fruit, they'll be like, yeah, no, it is, it
Hmm.
is, yeah,
Hmm.
you're absolutely right. How do you make that pivot when you are talking to voters, and some of the impression of, because their circumstances are absolutely real, right?
Hmm.
How do you talk to them where they are without making them feel like you're minimizing what their concerns are, when they go from their circumstances to saying, attributing, blame,
Right. Right.
because I'm guessing that you don't believe that immigrants are the
Right.
cause of every horrible thing that's ever happened to us, the reason
Hmm.
why
Hmm.
somebody's wife left them, like
Hmm.
I'm guessing that you don't see that as a
Right.
scapegoat. So
Right.
how
Yeah.
do you pivot to, something different?
I think it depends on where they are. Some
Yeah.
people are not currently in a place to receive. And that's sad, not my preference, but that's reality. Just like in the classroom, some students are just like not at a place to learn quadratic equations. So
Hmm.
what can we do? If they're open to even just a little dialogue, okay, I hear that. And then, well, start basic. Do you want to talk about that more? I have some other experiences or information. Like, are you open to like really discussing this and looking at some things and talking through, or not? And if they're not, like if that's where they are, that's not a door knock conversation that can be changed. That's
Hmm.
much, much more. But there are a lot of people that, oh, okay, well, that's really interesting. Like, why do you think that? Oh, okay. It's not really the immigrants. It's that like you lost your job to somebody who's not American. Like that sucks. Like I get it. I've,
Yeah.
lost my job to people that were American and not too. Like it sucks to lose your job no matter what. Uh, have you found a new job? Where like what training have you had? What training did they have? Have you looked? Did you know about this opportunity? And like this is where I really want to go is in the community, we have so many opportunities. We have so many amazing things that are happening. And so if you can like drill down and really identify the problems, like the problems that I'm now out of work,
Yeah. Yeah.
then okay, have you gotten
What's your
additional
solution?
training?
Yeah.
There's this program that gets you your GED. There's this program that teaches you CDL. There's what are you interested in? Like I understand that being out of work is scary and frustrating and exhausting and anxiety inducing and like that sucks for everybody. Did you know that there are all these options? And then just being that connector point to say it can get better. Here's everything that is available to you. Do you want me to put you in contact with this person? Do you want me to put in a good word? Do you like, what are you interested in? And approach it that way. And then hopefully over time, that mentality shifts. And when you're out of that, in this theoretical example, like you're in fight or flight mode. And so you're not thinking rationally. So we need to get you to a place where you're safe and secure enough to then start thinking rationally.
Oh, I like that because Republicans will pivot to their grievance. They'll let you
Hmm.
absolutely say all the people that are awful, and they'll agree with you. And if we're smart as Democrats, we pivot to solutions. We're like, no, that does suck. Here's how we fix it. I
Hmm.
think that's a
Hmm.
powerful because while I think we've all had moments where we have indulged our grievance before, at some point that gets old, right? Like
Hmm.
grievance doesn't pay the bills. Grievance doesn't, put food on the table. And at some point, people get tired of just, all right, like we've deported a lot of immigrants, and I still don't have a job,
Still. Hmm.
all right?
Yeah. Why do we think that is? Because immigrants actually, provide more to the economy than they're taking? Ah, crazy.
It's crazy that you can't punch enough drywall to fix all of your problems.
Right, right.
And I did not
Hmm.
realize that. Okay, so
Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about affordability and costs of living.
sure.
When you're talking with voters, and just as are you knocking on doors, or like you
Oh
personally
yeah.
knocking on
Hmm.
doors?
Yep.
What is your schedule looking like when it comes to canvassing? Like, is it what's the
Oh,
yeah? I'm gonna get back to
what is my
affordability, but like,
schedule?
how are you doing the sort of buckets? Are you doing a lot of door knocking? Are you prioritizing events? Is it kind of equal fundraising, door knocking events? Like, how are you going about this?
That's a great
I,
question. I feel like it
I
changes all the time. I'm also still teaching full time during this.
Jesus. Okay, but that you should be getting some free time soon, right?
In May, yeah.
Okay. Well, so the whole
Uh-huh.
primary.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm still
Okay.
teaching. I'm also, it's just like my fifth year that time that I'm applying for tenure as well.
Whew, you decided a year.
So
You
yeah,
picked a year.
yeah. So my university and my department has been fantastic. My even before running, I split my time. I do one undergraduate class and two graduate classes, and those are both
Mhm.
asynchronous online. So I don't have to be on campus as often as maybe other people or other jobs that you may have. So I'm very, very lucky to do that. I still have tons of meetings and things that
Mhm.
I have to go to campus for. Like this week, I was on campus 3 days for different
Okay.
meetings, which is, less than five, but still three
Still
that
three, yeah. Yeah.
so I am working as my job, and then on top of that, any free time free that I have is yeah divided between fundraising, canvassing, uh, talking to volunteers, event planning. I have a full-time staff of three right now,
Okay.
and so they're able to take on some of those as well. So I am knocking on doors. I also have somebody who is knocking on doors as well a few days a week.
Mhm.
I'm out there 2 or 3 days a week for a few hours, depending on the week. Uh, and then events and podcasts. I think in the next 2 weeks, I have 8 podcasts that I'm doing.
Oh man.
And yeah, I was at Central Station, the gay club up here on
Okay.
Saturday. Tomorrow we're going to be in Baton Rouge, but it's the perfect time since I'm already down south. So then I'm going to go
Yeah.
over to the Lake Charles Sulphur area. And on Sunday, we're going to do a coffee shop and then we're going to canvas afterwards in
Okay.
that area. So
That's
I don't think that answers your question,
no, I
but
think that how much time are you spending fundraising?
I'm not spending as much time as I probably should or other people are fundraising. I am self-funding quite a large percentage of my campaign, so that allows me to not
Is that by design?
fundraising.
Like, did you go in saying I'm probably going to self fund, or are you just
Yes.
okay? Okay.
Hmm.
I'm sure you've heard from plenty of people who have insisted that you get on the phones for call time. Yeah.
I have.
Do do you feel that with your current plan and budget, you feel like you can achieve what you're trying to achieve, get your win number?
I do.
Okay. Okay. Um. Okay. So let's step back from nuts and bolts. When you're talking to voters, particularly around affordability
Mhm.
and the costs of living, what what are some of the economic pressures that are unique to your district that you're hearing from? And it may not be unique to your district. You might be hearing gas prices everywhere or something like that. So, but like, what are you hearing are the pinches that people actually can feel and that they bring up, you know, organically?
Yeah. I mean, gas prices, grocery prices, kind of everywhere. I think maybe a little unique to this district is just the lack of job opportunities or the lack of like real wage jobs, sustainable wage jobs in the area. So many businesses have moved out and, some are trying to move back in. There are questions on if those businesses coming in are actually going to hire our residents or not, if it's
Hmm.
actually beneficial to the people in District 4 or not,
Yeah.
and shrouded in NDAs and
Hmm.
other things, which is crazy. But I think primarily it's like lack of good paying jobs is the biggest thing that I hear.
How do you create jobs? Like as a, and I'll be more specific.
Mhm.
If you got elected to Congress, from a policy perspective, how do you create jobs?
There are a lot of different ways to create jobs. And then there's, short-term versus long-term jobs, which is why I know I've talked about it already, but I think universal pre-K is a really great way to have both,
Hmm.
where, okay, we're building infrastructure for new schools. We can hire local Louisiana companies to build those schools and everything that it requires, from the electrical to the plumbing to the cement, concrete pours to construction oversight. And then you have the long-term employment of everything that's necessary to keep up schools, so janitorial staff, bus drivers, any of that, as well as teachers. And I think that is one way that one policy can actually like impact and improve the district and the area. Um, I think a lot of it's indirect.
Hmm.
And so like infrastructure is a huge issue in all of
Hmm.
Louisiana and also up here. And if you want people and companies to move into your city and into your space, you want to make it an attractive area for people to live. And so fixing our roads and making sure that our water is clean and manageable and works and that you don't lose power for 10 days, like those things, if we get them fixed, it just provides more of an incentive for companies to come in because as far as cost of living, like we're a relatively low cost of living area based depending on, what's around.
Hmm.
Um, but that's how I would approach it is like more of an indirect benefit.
Is there anything that you can do from a policy standpoint to lower costs?
So I think this is, and maybe you can push back on me. Costs always tend to rise. I mean, like inflation is a thing, cost of everything. You talk to like my grandpa who was like, "Oh yeah, I bought my house for $10,000 and
Hmm.
soda was a nickel." Like that's fundamentally society. Like costs go
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
and so when people want costs to go down, I get it. Absolutely. Like you want your money to go just as far or further than it did the day before. But we really should be looking at increasing minimum wage and increasing those like financial inputs instead of focusing on the output.
Hmm.
That's not for everything. I mean, there are
Yeah.
ways for like price gouging and like looking at like specific areas, but I think overall, like inflation happens. And so can our wages keep up with and model that increase of inflation so that your money continues to buy you the same amount that it did?
Yeah. Okay. So, because I don't want to, I want to be respectful of your time, but I have a few more questions and I want to make sure
Yeah.
we're kind of well-rounded. It was announced today that it looks like the United States is sending, what is that, 4,500 more troops to the Middle East. Uh,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on our current, and we'll just keep it with Iran for now because you know we are we're invading the world. Somehow we're the bad
Hmm.
we're the villains in
We're
this reenactment
we're the
of the.
baddies, yeah.
Yes, I don't know how in the world that happened, but what are your thoughts on our current engagement with Iran and the war in Iran?
I feel like we've seen this movie before. Um, I understand that there are potentially threats to national security from all over the world. That's why we have intelligence agencies. That's why we have a lot of interaction with other countries' intelligence agencies, and we have different alliances and intel sharing. So threats exist. And if you're going to go to war with a country, I think, well, one, you need congressional approval, which
Mhm.
has not happened. And two, we have to be able to specify the exact threat and how we're going to neutralize it and what the outcome is, what are our win conditions, and be able to communicate that to the American population. Because right now we said, oh, there's this like kind of nebulous idea of a threat. What is the threat? Is it the regime? Is it the missiles? Is it were they even really a threat to us or Israel? Like that's not defined. The plan is not defined, and the solution is not defined.
Yeah.
So all of it is just like a complete terrible mess on every front. And then now we're losing the lives of Americans. And also, we are actively ending the lives of civilians in Iran.
Yeah. Yeah. A- As a as a fellow brat, Air Force and Marines, I think that military families understand the 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 actual costs of war. You'll find that most vets and most of their families are much more anti-war than the average citizen because it's very real. I know a lot of I know a lot of retired vets who immediately called their sons who are in active duty as soon as they saw the news about Iran because they know
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
get into a mode.
hmm
Um, Knowing what you know now, if you were in Congress today and a war resolution was put in front of you for continuing the war in Iran, would you vote for it?
No, not how it is now. No, there's no plan. There's no, I mean, and I think regardless, you started a war without congressional approval. So you already showed that you are not abiding by the Constitution, don't care really what Congress has to say. So, from a behavioral perspective, if Congress were to vote for anything supporting this war, you're rewarding poor behavior.
Do you buy into the idea that once we get into a war, we got to finish it and we got to win it, so we got to do
No,
whatever's no?
no.
Okay. What is a what's your barometer for appropriate use of war? Appropriate use of force.
It's tough. I think in they talk about like active imminent threats
Mm-hmm.
to our like American lives. Uh, we need to protect our country and our citizenry. That is part of the government's job, is to make sure that its citizens are safe. And in education, we talk a lot about like the least restrictive environment, that you put somebody, you only apply the amount of force or the space that is necessary and nothing more.
Yeah.
And that's how any conflict, war, anything should be. If we're able to accomplish our stated goals and neutralize a threat at this level, then there's no need to go beyond that.
So let me like sometimes I use good analogy. I never know if it's a good analogy until I've said it out loud.
Okay.
Okay, so let's sort of give some scenarios. So
hmm
there's a guy outside of your house who says that he's gonna kill you. Is that an appropriate time to use force from inside of your house at the guy outside of your house? He's on the sidewalk. He says, "I'm gonna kill you."
No,
Okay. He says, "I'm going to the store to go get a gun. When I get back, I'm gonna kill you."
no,
He drives off, sends you a picture of him at the gun store saying, I'm buying the gun now. I'm coming back.
I mean, he's not
He's
physically
not
there.
there.
He said
Yeah,
the
yeah,
store, so
yeah.
I still say no.
Okay. And mind you that all of these
Right.
are
Uh-huh,
analogies
uh-huh.
to
Mm,
so
I got it.
whatever
I
the
got it.
analogy of so let's
Yeah.
it's the country is now purchasing weapons from Russia or something like
hmm
that. Okay. Now he sends you a text message showing that he's clearly aiming at you, aiming at your house. Now what?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What if he's aiming at 22 at your house from 600 yards away?
Then yeah, like okay, that's not really gonna. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. And
So
I
maybe,
think in that
and then
regard,
maybe
that's
like
the
the
real.
scale. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. Because I think that's where sometimes I think it does become difficult is where is the imminent threat? Like
Yep.
when is it imminent?
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything that we're hearing, even from within this administration, is that Iran was not an imminent threat. That
Right.
they were not. It wasn't a week away. It wasn't a month away. It wasn't a year away. That there
Hmm.
was still plenty of room for diplomacy to have been
Yes.
exerted here. Are there any imminent threats that you can see right now, just based on what you see in the? I don't know why it gave me a thumbs up. Uh, do you see any imminent threats to the United States right now? North Korea, Russia, China. Uh,
I That's so hard because we don't have the intelligence.
that's right. That's right.
So from my vantage point as a civilian currently, I don't. I could see that with the right information, maybe. I mean, all those are maybes, depending on what we know and what they're doing. And I mean, I think Russia's a little tied up right now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But everything's a maybe. And that's why we have these organizations who are like consistently collecting intel, and we have assets, and we have, service members are who run plans. And I mean,
Do you believe in spreading democracy?
in what way?
I appreciate that clarification. Uh, Philosophically, do you believe that you can implement democracy by force, even if it's not necessarily about, with war, but that you could sort of force democracy onto a society that didn't choose it?
I think you can until you leave.
Hmm.
So under restraint, you can force people to be democratic.
Yeah. No, yeah, yeah. I, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I was gonna ask, is that still democratic? And I think by textbook definition, it still is. All right. But boy, it certainly then flies in the face of is that freedom?
Right.
All right. Yeah. Okay. We're coming up on time. I have a couple more ideological questions. How
Cool.
would you describe yourself ideologically? Like, do you apply a label? Do you say that you're liberal? Do you say you're progressive? Are you a blue dog? Are you conservative? Like, what's your label?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I say progressive because what that label that has it's been applied to other people who I tend to agree with.
Hmm.
And it seems like that label is applied to people who fundamentally are trying to do what's best for humanity and the people around them and who care. So, whatever label is like, I care about others, I have empathy, I have compassion, I want to see people feel safe and be healthy and have dignity in their work. Like, whatever label that is, I'll accept it. I also am like pretty anti-labels as a human, as a person,
Hmm.
just because like I am gay, but I grew up in a very conservative Christian military family, and there was a lot of like inner conflict and turmoil in like bringing on that label and what would that mean for other labels. So like the idea of labeling is in itself something that I don't know but what I believe in.
Well, I always ask people this. In 2026, what is the difference between a Democrat and a Republican?
What kind of Democrat, what kind of Republican?
In general, like if you were teaching a civics class
Mm.
about generally speaking what bucket somebody might find themselves in. I think back, when I was younger, and maybe I'm just an idealist. I always tell people my political North Star is the West Wing, but back in the day, the difference largely was the role of government. Democrats
Mhm.
believe that government didn't have to be this boogeyman; it could be part of the solution. Republicans believe that government be damned, free market solutions, the market will fix it if it's supposed to be fixed. Obviously, nobody really neatly falls into those categories anymore.
Right.
But how would you describe the difference between Democrats and Republicans today?
That's really hard. I think today, the current Republican Party today, the administration,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not the individual Republican, but the Republican administration uh, does not pursue policy that cares about that all of America, that cares about human life and human decency. They pursue policies that only impact small groups of people purposefully. And I
But
think that
if Trump wasn't around, if Trump wasn't around, how would you describe people people who identify as Republicans now and people who identify as Democrats? What are the things that they have in common from a policy perspective? It can be cultural too, if that's where the definitions are more distinct.
I don't know if they are.
Hmm.
I feel like there's both are huge tent parties, and there's so many different ideologies that fit. And I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that.
Why aren't you a Republican?
I used to be growing up.
Okay,
Um,
what made you change?
I didn't. The party did.
Okay, so what is we're getting there. What does the party believe?
So
What do you
the
believe the party?
Republican, it's hard. Maybe the Democratic Party that I identify with
Okay,
is constitutional rule and law,
yeah.
democracy,
Hmm.
which is why tomorrow is going to be tough for me. Um, basic humanity and decency, like caring about your fellow human. And that's how I was raised as a Republican, conservative Christian, where it's like if people are hungry, you feed them. If people are uh they don't have clothes, you give them clothes. If people are hurting, then you help them. The like Good Samaritan, the just decency, like loving and caring for the people around you. And that seems to be absent in the policies of the Republicans. But I think that's why it's hard, is because the individual Republicans on the ground still think that they're abiding by all of those
Hmm.
when the policies don't align. But I think the Democratic Party, our policies do align much more with care and compassion and, I don't know, loving your neighbor.
That's fair. No, and I think that there again there is no real textbook definition. Nobody checks your credentials at the door before you sign up, and so I think that there are probably quite a few people who, especially in the last 10 years, may have switched parties or left the Republican Party largely because they didn't like what they were being associated with. And
Hmm.
it doesn't make them any less conservative. Like it doesn't mean that they want bigger government. It doesn't mean they want higher taxes, but like they also aren't embracing cruelty. And
Hmm.
that's just as fair to not want to be identified with that as, if all of a sudden now you do think the government programs could be part of the solution.
Hmm.
Um, what would be have you thought about any committees that you want to serve on if you get elected?
I'll do whatever. I mean,
Well, don't say
it
that. They're gonna give you all the shit. They're gonna give you all the shit committees. You're
well, that's
freshman.
what I'm that's what I'm used to. That's what I've done in education so far. You start on the shit committees and you work your way up and you
Yeah.
prove yourself. No, I would like to think that they could use my expertise in the education space, in the financial space and math background. But I mean, I think oversight, I think would be, I don't know if fun is the right word, but an experience. But I also think that every committee is valuable and necessary and needs good people on the committees. And I'm a worker. Like I will work. I'm ready to do the work. I'm ready. Whatever you need of me, like let's do it, let's get it done, and let's do it to the best of our abilities. And then if there's opportunities to change and switch committees and like work your way up, that's fine for me too. That's what I've done in my career as well. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of the shit work. I'm not afraid of, putting in the time and effort and energy that every single aspect of our government requires.
Okay. And to close this out, um, one of the biggest issues for not just Democrats in Louisiana, I think just for our democracy in Louisiana has been dwindling turnout. I mean, we've now normalized celebrating when it's above 20%,
Mm,
and that's insane. I am on record saying that I think that low turnout elections produce unjust outcomes, no matter what the outcome is,
I
because
agree. Hmm.
you're having everybody live with the policy choices of a very
Hmm.
small group of people. Um, but on the Democratic side, I think that a lot of that has become that the perception, and then to some degree it's real, that when Democrats do get elected, that they're not fighting hard enough, that they're not following through with the stuff that they swore they'd fight for on election day, and then they get either to the state legislature, their local council, or to Congress. And in many cases, it feels more like they're more afraid of what Republicans will say about them than being accountable to the people that got them there.
Hmm.
So for Democrats, because we're just focusing on the primary right now, one foot in front of the other.
Hmm.
For Democrats in the fourth district who are frustrated, who are skeptical, and who in many cases have checked out entirely because you're not the first idealistic Democrat to come in front of them and
Right.
tell them this
Hmm.
time's different.
Yep.
Um, what's your message to them about not only why they should support Matt Gromlich, but why you're different, why this time is different, why it's worth them showing up in May and maybe in June and then in November?
Hmm.
Why is it worth what's going to almost certainly be a very, very difficult campaign?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right. People, especially over the last 10 years, some people are checked out. It has been a lot. It's just like psychologically the barrage of information and craziness. Like people do have to be maybe in and out of politics more than they were in the past. They have to be selective
Mm-hmm.
about when they're going to access information and materials and when they won't. And I understand that completely. Also, we have had a lot of people in the past who have made a lot of promises and not delivered. I think it's tough because people want to hear your grandiose ideas and what your plan is. And then what we need to do is be able to communicate the steps that we're taking to get there. And this is where I feel my educator background comes in. This is where I feel the current Democratic Party is not really great at saying, okay, here's our plan, here's our goal. Like these are all the steps that we're taking to meet the goal. So this month in this meeting, we did X, Y, and Z. We did that because, and then educating about the process. It has to go through committee. It passed committee. Like this is a great win. Now it's going to go, to the floor, and then it goes, and just like letting people know that the work of a congressional member is it's long term. Almost nothing gets done overnight, although you see with executive orders, and that makes it a little bit harder even be like, well, why can't you just do that? Well, here's the process.
Yeah.
But here are all the actions that we're taking for that process to happen. So I'm not sitting back and doing nothing. I'm working every day on all of these pieces and I want to let you know. And that should be in forms of like quick, social media outputs and then also town halls when you're back in town, be accountable to your voters and talk about everything that you've accomplished and then see what questions and concerns they still have. And like I don't know, I've learned in teaching that if you are like open and honest and that you show people that you're receptive to feedback and you're authentic and genuine, that people are willing to forgive you if you're not moving as fast as they hoped for, or that you're not meeting every single 100% of their expectations. If you're moving in the right direction and you're being vulnerable, then they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe like, I wish it would have been a little bit better, but at
Hmm.
least we see that there is momentum and movement somewhere. And that's what I'm bringing.
Okay. Matt Gromlich, Democrat, running for Congress in Louisiana's 4th Congressional District, currently being held by the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Congratulations on just putting your hat in the ring
Thank you.
for making this pitch to voters to be a true public servant, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.